Hey, and it seems like we are live on air. So far, we have 0 viewers, but I'm really hoping the people will come. So, hi there, everybody who's watching. So today I have here Vayu Tiger. He is occultist and magician and a published author of a few books. He's going to talk about himself a bit more, but we basically met over internet some time ago. I was following Vayu Tiger's work, and I found him very interesting because he is quite young, but he seems to have so much knowledge about old Greek work and magic and everything about it. I find it extremely fascinating, and as we talked more, I found him even more fascinating. So I was thinking, may doing this interview and share some of his knowledge and some of the chat and what he's up to would be very interesting. So hi there, Tiger.
Hey, what's up? Very glad to be here.
Thank you for coming. I really I mentioned it before, but I really love your black outfit and the black screen. So well put together.
Yeah, I was contemplating and using the black screen for my videos, more or less, but I kind of refrained from using this, especially with certain lights, because it turns like your skin red, and you look sunburnt with the light. So it gets crazy.
No, it looks good. I like it.
Well, that's because the light's so darn close.
Just well, one of the most important things to say about you is that you are doing classical studies. So you can read loads of various occult popular languages like Latin and Coptic and other things like that. How did you actually got into this? Why did you actually decided to study such a thing?
Actually, I started this in 2009. I've always had a fascination with the Greeks to some extent. Honestly, for a while, I just thought it was a phase. You know, I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna grow out of it, and I'm gonna move on, get a job, everything will be fine, everything will be dandy. I'll skip along, and we'll continue, and I'll continue to do my thing. Well, a part of that has never left me, and I figured out it was a little more than a fascination. As soon as I started studying magic, I'm like, I was in a Christian household, and I was like, okay, well, okay, don't get me wrong, I have nothing against Christianity, but I want to explore a little bit. Then I found out, like, oh, well, I can actually work with some of these Greek deities, and ever since then, I guess I was drawn, even though I wasn't so far into the Greeks. Like, when I got into magic, I figured as soon as I discovered occultism, a lot of it leads to the Greek and the Mediterranean cultures. So it was during this period that I said I need something to assist my occult studies. So I'm a student in classical studies, getting my MBA in it, and Latin and Greek, along with some of the writings of Seneca, Pliny the Elder, Pliny the Younger, and so many other writings are involved in this. And the reason why I partially got involved was because I read Cornelius Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy, and he constantly quotes these people or constantly references these people. And I'm like, the college education is about the only way I'll be able to learn this properly.
I really like how he actually said that, oh, I was just hoping it was some sort of like a phase and I will just grow up with it and get a job and go on with my life. It's like when parents are having the kids that into punk or golf and like thinking, oh, Jesus Christ, I hope he's going to grow up with it. It's like, oh yeah, I'm into old Greece. I'm really hoping I'm going to grow out of it and just go on with my life. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The truth is that loads of the occult texts or grimoires, let's say, that are a bit younger, let's say, than the old Greek ones, will quote or just make references, naturally assuming you're obviously, absolutely naturally, aware of those texts and you know them and would reference them quite often. You are actually a published author yourself. I know you have quite a few texts, 2 books published already. So would you like to tell us what you already have published and where actually we can get your books?
Yeah. Firstly, My first book that I published was The Collected Works of Robert Powell. That's my legal name, and I'm getting my name changed here soon. I'm excited about that. And there's a reason why I'm changing my name before I dive into my books too much, is because in America, if you go under a pen name and you write a book, it's automatically labeled as fiction. Which
Really?
yeah.
Jesus, that's so rude.
And plus with Facebook, I was on Facebook there a few months ago, and they require you to use your real name.
And you know
And
what? I think actually, I'm not. Is it actually legal? I don't think anybody except police or like an actual government can actually, ask you to prove your
if
name.
you sign up, if you sign up for a website, you sign up, you automatically agree to their policies. So you sign up for that, you know. So I essentially, and also Vayu Tiger, the name has kind of grown on me. Like under Robert Powell, it didn't have as much of an impact. I've done more under Vayu Tiger in 9 years than what I have my other half of my life as Robert Powell. So that drew me to my books, and it became more than a name. It became a name of manifestation. So I published my first book, which is The Selected Works of Robert Powell at the time. And I was just writing, and I was thinking, wow, I like my blogs, but if something happens to these, I need to save these. So I started typing them out, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna put these out there. I'm not gonna lie, some of the grammar is bad because, I thought I'm just gonna write, I just put it out there anyway. So then I got into my next work, which was like my spiritual awakening. That was a Concilium 18. This is when I really started getting really deep into Latin. And the deeper I got into Latin, and the more I started using words like caput and concilium, which means like to advise. And if it was to be proper, it would be concilium duo devincti. But I like Concilium 18 better. It makes sense in Roman numerals. But that was my spiritual awakening. It has to do with the triad, Pallas Athena, Phoebus Apollo, and Aphrodite. And also there was an opening chapter from my holy guardian angel, and I got so entrenched into this that the message, it just came to me so strong. I wrote it in 4 days. I kind of put it in my notes. I'm like, it's just useless scribbles. You know how it goes. Then you eventually go through some of your work on a good day once you're past your own cynical thoughts, and I'm like, these scribblings look pretty neat. And then I went through them, and I started to go and interpret them. I'm like, holy shit. Then my intuition kicked in. My HGA, my holy guardian angel, said, intuitively said, well, it's time to publish these. But I'm like, this is so personal. Why would I publish this book? It's just outside of my comfort zone. So I went to publish it anyway. And honestly, I've gotten a lot of good feedback about it, and I'm really proud of it. I didn't think so many people would be able to connect with it so well. So I would say that's so far my greatest work.
Wow, it's actually very interesting that you mentioned that you worked on the book in the preparation with your holy guardian angel. I know quite a few people who are doing that, who are just communicating and having the guidance of holy guardian angel, and that, let's say, in terms of their blogs or their writings. I personally just starting with it, and I found it, well, I guess whoever is my holy guardian angel, this creature is not very talkative that much. I guess maybe if they have their own personalities, I don't know, but this one is very hard to talk to. Usually just give me one word, and if I'm asking too much, it just refuses to talk to me whatsoever. So, but I definitely find, from my experience, that the moment I actually start working with this creature, if it's higher self, my higher self, or holy guardian angel, I'm usually not asking too many questions. I find it very helpful, and it helped me on my way, and it guided me. And from my perspective, I didn't even see a point of actually me joining an order if I can have this type of a guidance that's somehow customized to me and somehow tailored to my needs and to my personal development. For how long have you been working with a holy guardian angel?
Honestly, I started to work on Halloween. That was the time I got started. It was the latter end of 2010, and to make a long story short, it's going to be pretty mundane. Not no probably not so much as mystical in the beginning, but what happened was I was hanging out with my friends at their Halloween party. Had way too much Everclear mixed in with the fruit punch drink, and we were just drinking. He says, "Dude, I'm looking for to rent out the room upstairs if you want it." And the room faced towards the east. I mean, the entire house faced towards the east, which is I was getting ready to start the Abermelon process. And I'm like, okay, I'll think about this. I'll give it a shot. I'm just too inebriated to talk about this moment right now. So I eventually woke up in the morning. And that afternoon, I said, "Yeah, I like it. I like the room. I like everything. I'll rent this out from you. This is exactly what I need for my practice anyway." So I got a book that was recommended to me from my friend Jesse Dollar, and he said get Jason Augustus Newcomb's book, The 21st Century Mage. It's an updated version. I'm like, all right, and I picked up this book. I did some of the practices out of it, and I was working with my mentor at the same time, just for the hell of it. And at the time, I was in a group that I created called the Ascetic Order. So this actually all falls together in a very strange way. But I'm doing the work, and it was New Year's Eve. I go and I do mask work with my mentor. His name is Melvin Bates, wonderful guy. And when I was doing work with him, one of our members, she had a disabled daughter. She was born brain dead, pretty much. Like, if she got a toy, all she could do is stare at it. Whenever she got something, all she could do was really smile. She didn't have any other capabilities. That was her only thing. At first, one would say this is a story of despair and sadness, but actually, I thought about it. The only thing she could do was smile. This little girl was an angel, and it really helped me through my Holy Guardian Angel process, because most of this process has to do with the elimination of the ego to get to yourself, to get to your inner core. And that night, I mean, he went through Vietnam. He even saw this girl, and he was somewhere along the lines where he was dropped to tears after he saw her only ability was to smile. And I meditated on this thought, and it happened on January 1st of 2011. The morning sun was coming up in this, and it was like this ball, this light which kind of came into my room, and it occurred to me that I got this feeling. I couldn't describe it. It was like this numbness. It was like I was so overwhelmed with feelings, and my higher self like kind of manifested in a weird way. It was kind of visual, but it was more or less a feeling. And I'm like, I broke down in tears. Like, I saw everything, like all the good, the bad, the beautiful, the ugly, everything. Like, it became so overwhelming. And it was during this period I found my Holy Guardian Angel. Then I picked up my bags, and about a month later, and I said, "Hey guys, I got to go because here's the rent money." I gave him extra rent money because I had more than enough. And I said, I hate to cut this short, but my HJ is telling me something. I got to go. I packed up everything in my car. I went all the way up to northern Indiana, and I didn't know where the fuck I was going. I just followed my intuition. Stopped at a gas station, and I ran into my friend at a gas station. And my friend said, "Hey, I didn't even know he was up there." And he's like, "Yo, what you up to?" I'm like, "I don't know. You could say I'm on a little bit of a road trip." He goes, "Yeah, what you into nowadays?" I said, "Not a lot going on, quit my job, kind of on a road trip." And he says, "Anything particular?" I said, "I do magic." He goes, "Magic?" He goes, "I tell you what, I got a place. If you stay over here and you teach me magic, I'll give you everything you need, roof over your head, everything." So I took that journey, stayed up there for a little while. Then I went back home. And it was probably about a year later, my HGA came to me again, said, you know what, it's time for you to go on a road trip. It's time for you to go out and enjoy things a little
The
more. I'm
holy
like,
guardian angel
oh,
apparently loves the road trips.
oh yeah, but this road trip is the one that was truly life changing. I went from Indiana and I went down, and at this time I was really good friend, and I'm still really good friends with Venus. And you know, I went on the East Coast. I went to Georgia. I went to Jekyll Island. I went all the way down to Daytona. I went to West Palm Beach, and I went to all these places talking to these magicians and occultists, and I gathered all this knowledge and all of that. And I came back and I felt like a whole new person. Like then I started working and compiling a book that I'm trying to finish right now. But it's kind of weird when you work with the Holy Guardian Angel. It's not necessarily a voice, but it's kind of like that intuitive instinct a lot of times. Like you get that overwhelming feeling and you just know. So the Holy Guardian Angel is kind of like this higher self. And the book I can recommend you to read this on isn't even Crowley or Peter J. Carroll or anything. It's Angels of Chaos by Frater Elijah. If you haven't get that book, you should get that book. It's amazing. Yeah, to me, that book clearly defines the feeling of the HGA and the concepts of it. But yeah, it's quite a journey.
It's very interesting that you said the the experience with the light. I actually, funnily enough, have the very same one. That was, I would say, at the beginning of my spiritual journey, or before I actually got really deeply into magic and occult. And that was in a moment when I kind of, I guess, was ready for this type of experience. And again, it was rising sun in the morning. It was sunny day, and the sun went through the window. And for me, just out of sudden, I felt like a bit like I've seen the light for the first time in my life. It wasn't just light, it was the force was way light, it was way brighter, it was expansive, and it felt like the light is the only thing that actually exists in the whole universe. And it was like expansive and just light, and just me kind of just being in the middle of it and being completely immersed in it. And but it was more than a light, it was a feeling of light and somehow love and grace and loads of other things mixed in this like purely physical experience of actually being in the middle of a light. And since then, actually, my life turned complete turn, and everything, basically nothing in my life stayed as it was and changed for better. And so I never kind of like, what was this experience? Is it enlightenment? Is it connection with some sort of like a spirit? I still have no idea what the hell was that. But I've actually seen like quite a few people who had a similar experience. And every time, let's say when I was upset, for some reason, always this idea that the only thing that's real at the end of the day is this light. Somehow always comfort me and make me feel much better. But actually, you noticed, you pointed something out that I found very interesting. And also from my experience, I had similar experience, and I know more people who have the same experience. And that is the Holy Guardian Angel seems to be helping a lot with the self-development and self-transformations. Naturally, this will make impact and effect on your magical journey, obviously, because the more you're developing as a person, as personal experiences, obviously that will go into your magic. But yeah, actually, like it seems like the angel wants you to transform into better and more happier person. So it's more like a cheaper psychotherapist who actually know what he's doing. So that was kind of like my impression from Holy Guardian Angels.
Yeah, and that's a big thing too, is it's been clearly defined by Plato as the logos, and this was a part of his philosophy, the logos, the mind. The mind is where the soul is. And this also comes into play along with the emerald tablets. You know, the sun is its moon. I mean, the sun is a father, the moon its mother,
I
to
love
produce the
emerald
miracle
tablets.
of one thing, the rising of Mercury. And this is important because I talk about this, or I have plans of talking about this in my videos, so this is a spoiler alert. Like, people don't understand how like the Holy Guardian Angel is representative of the fire and the water. See, because every person is born from the waters. They are derived from the womb of waters, the waters of creation, the firmament in the Bible, the waters separated early on in the Bible. And it's the waters that created the heavens and the earth. And it's from this womb of creation. Even if we look at the biblical story of Moses, which in Hebrew is Moshe, Moshe means born of the waters. Now listen to this. Here's the irony. He was born of the waters. He pretty much was adopted into the house of the Pharaoh. He got expelled into the desert. And how did he find his enlightenment? How did he find his purpose? A burning bush. You know, and this
Well done.
this also goes on for the Zoroasters. Is the Zoroaster, he saw the water as a birthplace, but he also saw the fire of the Spirit of God. You know, and same thing with Thales of Miletus, and in Stoic philosophy, the water is a place of birth. This is why, and even baptism is a part of this. You're reborn as a Christian into baptism in the waters, and then you get filled with the Spirit of God after you get out of the waters. It's the exact same concept. You know, even if we look at the Hebrew word for heaven, heaven is made up of two words, fire and water in Hebrew.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's a big part of the Holy Guardian Angel is the fire. It's like a birthing process. You start out with the fires, the waters. You're reborn in the waters spiritually, then you find the fires. So that's how I see the process of the entire thing.
That makes perfect sense. What I can see also in it is basically Kybalion and the law of genders. You have one gender that's like a female, receptive, the creative, the one that gives birth, female, water, and then you have the manifesting one, the active one, the one that sparks but can't create on its own. So I think like that's how I feel about those two, like this water and the fire, female, male. We're kind of like still circling about the similar processes that kind of applies to almost everything we're basically experiencing, even mentally, emotionally, but also physically in the real world. Yeah, I know that quite a few like Barden system and other systems actually kind of, I think Crowley is doing it too, saying that basically the water and the fire, that's like, that's like the actual elements, and there is the air, and there's like the earth is like just some sort of like a, earth, yeah. We don't talk about earth when we are in a educated society type of approach. So you've been talking about the Holy Guardian Angel and how you came to it. Like when I was reading Crowley's books, how, let's say, he is describing, and some other occultists, the way how you can actually obtain the Holy Guardian Angel, it looks like complete disaster. It looks like 3 years begging and asking and basically just getting your knees raw and like be in a terrible physical pain. So maybe at some point the Holy Guardian Angel will kind of approach you. From my perspective, like all I had to do was kind of send request and be in a position when I was ready for it as a person. So what do you think about it? Do you think it's needed to actually go through like very deep and maybe even hard or painful training to get in touch with the Holy Guardian Angel? Or do you think you just need to request it?
Honestly, there's a theory that's out there that, and I concur with this. We get spurts of the Holy Guardian Angel every single day. For example, let's say you're a business person and there's a business deal. It sounds good, but there's that little voice, that little intuition that says this is a bad idea. Like it's always somewhat there, but to get in tune with it, there's different methodologies to it. So the process that you're talking about, I don't know if you're talking about the yogi process to it or the Abramelin operation. Yeah, but I think that there's different systems that work. Some use the Abramelin process. I certainly used a modern version of the Abramelin process, but what really sped up the process was this paralyzed girl who I conceptualized around.
Mm,
And it really understanding this little girl who couldn't even speak, who
mm,
all she could do is smile. She made me realize what divinity was. You know, people say you can't find perfection in a human, but if I could find perfection in a human, it would be that girl. Not because of her her physical capabilities, but because of her spirit. You know, the joy she brought, the just the overwhelming feeling. But that, and don't get me wrong, it actually coincide perfectly with the Obermelin process. You know, it coincide perfectly. So with all that being mentioned, I just feel like at the end of the day, there's different processes. Some would say alchemy. You have yoga. You have the Obermelin process. Even religion is somewhat of a way to find it. You know, I mean, there's so many different ways. Some people it just happens. You know, some people they find it through the self improvement process. So I don't think there is a necessarily a right or wrong way to it.
mm.
But to me, it's a bitch to get up there. It's hard as hell to get up there to maintain to reach that point, but it's harder to maintain that point and to keep that point. You know, because it's kind of like a team goes to the Super Bowl. They're like, yes, we won the championship. Then they don't make it to the Super Bowl the next year. So you have to maintain that greatness. You have to maintain that excellence through practice. So I think there's different styles for different people and things of that nature.
It's actually a great point you made with this, like almost like expansion of the heart chakra or expansion of the light or anything that's connected to this idea of divine greatness and forgiveness and love, which in your case was the girl who kind of triggers this almost like a heart chakra explosion that kind of attract this type of a energy in your life. I actually had a similar experience how basically the angel came into my life with this light coming through my window, and I literally felt like this part of me is expanding, and I was actually crying too. It's like I just couldn't. It's like it was so beautiful, the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life, and just like, bah. But actually, you are now writing on a. You're actually now finishing a new book that's going to be published in on 18th of February, right?
Yeah, it's actually a revision of the Concilium 18 Act because I didn't like the flow of the prose in it. The the prose in it was just a little bit, it seemed antiquated to some extent and kind of convoluted the message to some extent. So I'm like, okay, well, I need to do something. I'm going to modernize it a little bit because at the time, with my limited knowledge, very limited, at the time of the writing, automatic writing, you know, your brain can only process so much when you're doing it. So sometimes we put a word that isn't appropriate for the time or the meaning. So I just felt like it was time to revise it, and especially since I've been undergoing my classical studies degree, I'm starting to realize the entities which have came to me to some extent and realize what I can do to actually accentuate the process and extrapolate on it, such as, like, you know, I have the logos and pleasure and passion, how the passion makes you a wonderful warrior, but how the pleasure can make you a lackadaisical fool. But it has to be moderated with the logos, and it all
Fire
has to
and
be
water,
balanced.
fire and water.
Yeah, but everybody's balance is a little different though, and the author I was reading, uh, I think I have the book over. Yeah, I have the book right here. But he talks about something, the body, and it goes more into some of the Stoic theory, some of my own theory, some of my own systems that I apply, some more mysticism, you could say, hermeticism, alchemy, and everything that I've kind of compiled, even Greco-Egyptian magic. I would say that my magic isn't just purely based around Greco-Roman. It's also heavily Egyptian influenced as well, such as the Greek magical papyri is like a Greco-Egyptian sort of magic, and that's what this is sort of evolved around to some extent. And It talks about the new age of Aquarius, which is an aeon according to the Gnostics, although I'm using the word a little different than what the Gnostics would. They have many different faces and masks for the aeon names and such. But according to my definition, this aeon or new age of Aquarius in astrology, it has more of a indifferent feeling. People praise it like, oh, this is a time of enlightenment, but it's not like enlightenment with other people. If an Aquarius is out there, but they're more like, yeah, just like the air signs they're like, okay, that's cool. Do you know what I mean? It's more of a spiritual thing. Like, it's more of an indifference, but it's charity when it's required. And we're already seeing signs of this, in my personal opinion. It has extreme positives and extreme negatives. And you could say an aeon is a mask of God. That's how the Gnostics interpreted it. So if we look at this in a certain light, we'll see that, especially with some of the people, like one of the most negative parts, I believe, of this new age was where this guy got stabbed in New York City, and he laid there and he bled to death, and everybody just walked past him because they were indifferent, that they just didn't care. But on the other hand, you have kind of a dissolution or a dissolve of magical orders, kind of losing membership. You have the Masons falling to some extent, and you have people actually questioning these antiquated authorities to some extent, or some of their morals or maxims, things like that. So so this age is a very positive and also a very negative thing. Like, although there's more individual thinking, it also brings course in for more censorship because it's more left. Say you can't offend, but at the same time, we're going to block you from saying this. And this is a trademark of the new age of Aquarius. So this book touches upon that, touches upon the arts, individuality, and things of that. It talks about the good, the bad, the positive, the neutral, and all of that. It talks about all kinds of stuff.
Is that actually interesting thing just came to my mind as you've been talking about indifference and the age of Aquarius? It sure seems like nowadays the modern times are actually quite airy times, because even the indifference, that's obviously lack of water emotions, or not being balanced properly with the air. The new technologies, again, air, intellectualizing air, even the indifference, even the asking questions about authorities, and it's all very airy energy. And that's even actually how I feel about the current times, how I'm calling barcode wise, how it feels to me. The modern times now feel airy, and the new aeons that are in front of us actually feel even more airy, but the water is coming back. So it's a little bit more water and airy. And the past, I can sense something that's very heavy, fiery. But that's, I'd say, just like how I perceive when we are now and when we are heading. So it seems like we are really now in airy times.
Oh yeah, and I believe it's according to Oberon Zell. I think out of all the pagans, I think Oberon Zell is the one who I love the most, because he is educated. I don't agree with all of his views, but he does do astronomy and astrology and things like I would say he's pretty well educated, although I don't agree with all of his views. I do agree with, though, however, his timing on this. Every 2,167 years, a new aeon or a new age reaches. It's kind of like a dethroning of some energies and a rise of other energies. So
I got this. That's basically a hermetic idea, but I kind of came up to the same solution myself, and that basically everything is in a constant movement, everything is in a constant state of evolution. But also, if you kind of just think about how people are coming out with ideas, it seems like, it's gathering in the background of your head for some time. If you're, let's say, artist, you go on exhibition and you kind of see that artwork, and then you're talking about the to something completely unrelated, and then you're talking to another friend completely something unrelated, and then somehow it just booms and you got this idea for this absolutely perfect artwork, and then you kind of make it happen, and then you have your own eon, and then you start processing it. So that was my impression how this worked too. Like kind of like it's gathering momentum, gathering in the background, gathering, and once the situation is ripe, then kind of just and it just happens. So when actually where people can buy your book?
You can actually get my book on Amazon. You type in Consilium 18, CONSILIUM XVIII.
There will be links in the comment section below or the description section below.
Yeah, it'll be there. I mean, you may be able to find some extra prints. I took it out of print, so my new one will be more organized for that reason. So I think that there's some extra prints left online, though.
Cool.
You know? Yeah, because I felt like I didn't do the text some justice earlier on from my lack of understanding to some degree. So I felt like some of it need to be corrected with footnotes and all of that to help understand it to some degree, because it's very poetic, and it's crazy deep. So a lot of numerology, a lot of astrology, and you could tell that there's different entities that wrote this, because it's like, you know, you have Apollo for one coming out talking about like kind of like feeling the wrath, but also like music and arts and everything. Then you have self-centered Aphrodite in there saying, "Oh, pleasure," and things like this. Then you have Pallas Athena who comes in, and she's like more or less the logos balancing everything out. She's saying, "Hey guys, let's be neutral here," So it's almost like three different sets of instructions, or three different sets of understanding, just kind of mixed into one modern philosophy or belief system or what have you, one magic system.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's quite in unison as a lot of other things. There's there's different voices there. You just have to balance them out to some degree. It's pretty crazy how much in common it has to Pythagoras, and how much it has in common with Plato, because and it even acknowledges an actual like the monad, if you will. It acknowledges the monad, but it goes by the Greek name chaos, the beginning, and so it doesn't discredit like that nothingness, the beginning. It doesn't discredit that or take away from it. So it's very Pythagorean. I never realized it until I studied Pythagoras into depth, along with Plato and all that. Like, I always knew who they were. I kind of thumbed through some of their works, but I never realized how far in depth it was. And when these old spirits come to you and they give you some sort of a message, and you really don't know what the fuck is going on till you read it, and it's like, oh, I see what you did there. I see. Yeah. So it's pretty interesting.
It's actually, we've been talking about this before, and that is actually writing books or blogs, or basically being inspired or working in cooperation with the spirits who are giving messages, who might dictate or just help to kind of put things together. Or even like from my experience of today, they was kind of almost picking up the chapters, telling me which chapters they did like, which chapters they didn't like, which I should concentrate more, and basically having this terms of like a spiritual mentor. So are you using like those type of spirits in terms of when you're writing your books?
Generally for my system in Megea, that's why I call it Megea. It's just quite simply Greek for magic, although most Greeks did despise me, because they were afraid of the supernatural forces that man had. They're like, ooh, well, this isn't magic, this is black magic. And I believe partially magic got a bad name in Greece because they didn't like Persia. Magic used to be a Persian name. Megea was a Persian practice, and they really hated the Persians.
Mm-hmm.
So So when I look back at a lot of this, despite everything, there was those rebels and there was those people who did it in private. We found like clay poppets with like needles and stuff in them, and grease and everything. So they participated. Plus, there's a Greek magical papyri when they intermingled with the Egyptians. But as for your question, yeah, do generally do an evocation or do some sort. I try to connect with the spirit for each and everything because I find, despite the three different teachings, that they kind of blend together in this perfect way, if you will.
Hmm.
And
No,
so yeah, I do use that.
so you said about evocations. How about writing in invocations?
Honestly, I like invocations. I like them to some extent. This is my personal opinion, though, when it comes to magic. You know, I would rather evoke something than invoke something because the difference is you're not in me. I'm not gonna let you in me. You know, I don't trust you. You know, but but like when you do an invocation, you just don't know what the fuck is going to happen sometimes. You know, I mean, honestly, when I read some of these books, and they emphasize invocations over, and how they demonize evocations, I'm like, it's like, why are they writing books about invocation? You know, that they assume that this entity or the spirit is automatically their best buddy from high school. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, hey, I'm just gonna summon I'm gonna summon Satan and I'm gonna invoke him and we're just gonna hang out and we're gonna drink a few beers together. Although some like
This approach reminds me of one unknown YouTube magician. I'm not going to say which one, but I think most people can kind of connect the dots. Continue.
but don't get me wrong. I mean, I treat spirits like I treat people. You know, you're gonna have some spirits that are assholes. You're gonna have some spirits that, okay. Then you're gonna have some that are like, hey, dude, you're fucking awesome. You know, and we have to approach it like this because would you just let a random stranger like into your home, or would you just let a random stranger have sex with you just for the hell of it? It's like no. It's like no. That's just not right. It's like no. You stay there. We're gonna know. We're gonna get to know each other for a while. I'm not letting you anywhere near me. Do you know what I
At least you
mean?
buy me a dinner.
Yeah, that's how I see invocation. It's kind of like sex. Do you know what I mean? Essentially, that metaphorically, that's what it is.
Yeah, yeah, actually.
It's a spiritual sex. You're letting something in you. You know, I've seen people's lives get ruined because of a bad invocation. You know, or they let some spirit into them and they don't actually let that spirit out at some point, or the spirit chooses to stay there. then then they make these crazy decisions. They lose their friends, they lose their jobs, and all of that. I haven't seen death from it or anything as extreme as other people, but I've seen people's lives get ruined from it. So I focus a lot on evocation because of that reason. Like I really have to get buddy buddy with the spirit to invoke.
Hmm. I'm personally, I like to both evocation and invocations. I know people who are preferring invocations and not big keen on evocations. I know people who are exactly like you said, like I'm not letting anything in. It's just like this is not happening. Um, I personally have noticed that, let's say, for my own practice, I like to evoke entities, but if I'm invoking, I like to invoke archetypes or something a bit more abstract than an actual particular entity or goddess or spirit. I've heard somewhere, I've read somewhere this idea like, oh, you should invoke a demon. I was like, don't. Just if somebody tells you to invoke a demon, just run away. So let's say from obviously invocations like the power, just just invoking divinity itself before just raise power really. Just going slightly beyond the generic meta pillar, but kind of like take a bit on the next level in terms of like invoking as pure divinity as you can before evocation. Let's say help me to work with the spirits from a slightly different hierarchy level than normally I would. So in that sense, I like invocations, but spirits, invocations of demons.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I had a horrible experience with an invocation once, and I kind of use this as satirical humor, although it's true. But I have to make fun of it. If you can't make fun of yourself, then you need to take a break, you know. But in my early youth, when I was really getting into Egyptian stuff, I was thinking, okay, well, I'm going to invoke the god of the earth. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to invoke the god of the earth. So I being a little bit
And
arrogant.
that's not to move.
Yeah, well, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit arrogant at the time, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna do this, and I thought I could recall the name off the top of my head, and the god of the earth, or the plower of the fields, or such in Egyptian is Geb, you know, but instead of saying Geb, I thought it was Seth, and my my dumbass invoked Seth, and he kind of fucked with me. He goes,
Occult joke
I
alert.
am Seth. I am the god of the earth. And I'm like, oh, I'm like, after 5 minutes, I got I felt drunk. I felt drunk for 2 days, and I
That
like,
was still the better version.
yeah. I gotta cleanse myself. But I did cleanse myself from it. I said, where the fuck did I go wrong? What happened here? What did I do? Then I was going through my Egyptian mythology book, and it says, oh, to the god of the earth, Geb. I'm like, not Seth. Who the fuck is a Seth character again? I looked at Seth and I said the enemy of Horus. I'm like, a malevolent god. I'm like, I'm a dumbass. You know, so that was at the time that I've learned to catch my references a lot better, because
Like,
once
that's
you think
an
you,
interesting invocation, but I think if you have to know how to exercise yourself afterwards properly.
I didn't have that problem. I just knew I fucked up somewhere, and I messed up so bad I couldn't figure out where I messed up until I figured out the names, and then I'm like, okay, so Geb was so Seth was role playing as Geb and telling me bullshit.
Oh,
Oh, but it actually, it showed me that Seth had sort of a sense of humor. I mean, I can't. I've never had an invocation where I felt drunk for 2 days. No,
I,
like I was doing everything under the sun, and I'm like, okay, I have to acknowledge where I fucked up to fix this, and I did fix it though. But it was quite funny. I actually, it kind of made me want to develop a friendship with Seth at some point, but because it shows he had a sense of humor. I can't say I felt a hangover, but drunk. It was
spirits
weird.
actually, some of them do actually have a sense for humor. Not like I can appreciate the humor. I'm not might be appreciating the situation, but I might appreciate the humor. But especially with some of the Goetic demons, they do have a sense for humor. They definitely do. And I'm always like looking at the situation and thinking, "Oh, you little son of a bitch! You got me what I wanted, but this is not how I wanted it." So yeah, they definitely do have a sense, wicked sense for humor. Not always appreciated.
Yeah, if there's one thing that I've learned about magic and vocation, evocation, where even whether it's sending out your own energy, I have a term that I use to a few of my magician friends, and I say, you need to be the lawyer of your own spell. What I mean by lawyer is you need to cover every single detail in your ritual. Your ritual is your contract, you know? Say, I don't want this, I don't want this, but I want this, but if this happens, then I want this, you know? And you have to get so far to that point, but it pays off in the end. Like even if they're a little bit disgruntled about it, generally, once they agree to that contract, they'll generally go along with it because they're going into their original parameters that they were meant for. Because one thing we have to remember about grimoires is a lot of these people automatically assumed, if you're educated, you knew how to do the art of evocation. Here's the evocation, okay? It's going to work. You know, the evocation is just going to work. They just kind of assume that you are wise enough to do the magic. So when you don't go in there with discipline or with some sort of system, then of course it's not going to work. Of course they're going to fuck with you, and that's one thing. I don't see anything wrong with spirits. They're just like people, but
No.
you know, but a lot of these, like I said, a lot of these grimoires were just written when the magicians just assumed you had the knowledge and you understood the path. Other than, it's not like a 16-year-old picking up the Key of Solomon now and saying, "Oh, I'm going to get the Goetia and I'm going to just summon these demons. Let's do it." You know?
The last time I was calling Malphas, I had like a 3 or 4 pages of like literally almost like a contract that I was like reading for 20 minutes what I want and what I don't want. But it did pay off. It did pay off. But I found Malphas. Malphas is one of my favorite Goetic demons. Malphas and Amdusias. And it's like my most favorite ones that I like to work with. But I've noticed that loads of people, that actually is the reason why they don't want to work with Goetia. I think partially there are better systems to get things that you want than Goetia, but I still found Goetia being quite fun. So I just like to work with them for the fun of it. But actually, we got something I wanted to ask you too, and that is usage of tools. I know some people are like just purely mental magic, this type of like a Gnostic type of a magic, and some people, let's say Hoodoo, another system, are basically almost purely based on a usage of physical tools. So what my opinion about this, I would like to combine both, and what works the best from tools, what works the best from mental magic, and then just combine it together. So what's your ideas about it?
Okay. Firstly, yeah, I believe in the Hermetic or even the Pythagorean view, or even the Platonic view, Renaissance magic, whatever. There's a macrocosm and a microcosm. And with this, there's what I like to term internal magic and external magic. Now, to be clear on something, I believe tools do possess energy. Whether we can apply a maxim to that, apply a moral to it, apply a lesson or an allegory to it, I think that's our own personal choice. But personally, I just see it as energy, you know? And scientifically, as far as I know, matter is compressed energy, and it's a vibration, just as Pythagoras once said that number is an energy, it's a vibration. You know, that's what he was hinting at. Like when you listen to music, and I talked about this in a Mona Magic thing, that how music influences you through the sounds and the vibrations working together, you know? So our body, I see this as a 50-50 thing. You know, I believe our mind, our body, our spirit is made of energy, and we can send energy, you know, but to be purely reliant on it, I think that's fine, but it's just not my personal style. However, you know, there's an external out there. So when I get my knife, when I get my wand, when I put an energy into it, it's not just a focus tool. It's not just a prop for me. It's literally a magic tool because I invested my energy into that. And on top of that, it's made of the same stuff as I am on the inside. It's made of the same stuff as the universe on the inside. So if you have a conscious connection with your tools, it's not just a tool, you know? Because if that was the case, if I was to do ceremonial magic and think, oh, these are just props, why would I just have props? Oh, they're for focus. Well, what's the point in having them if I can just train myself to focus without them? You know, it's like a kindergarten kid just playing with Legos. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's like if the Legos serve a purpose for playing, then why the fuck do you need Legos if it's just a prop? I mean you can just certainly watch a movie.
Makes perfect sense. Completely vocalize my own thoughts on this.
Yeah, that's just how I see it. Internal and external. That's how I define magic, and to some extent, it's a supposition through experimentation, with the internal and external to manifest. That's the best way I can describe magic, because there you have different forms. You have ascension magic, which is the kind I practice and you may practice. You know, to not focus so much on the negative energy around you, or like throw out curses every other which way because this person hurt my pride, I'm going to curse them, but rather focusing on myself to get above the situation. Because my physiology, how I approach the situation psychologically, that affects the situation. So essentially, I am the magical vessel, and the way I react is going to trigger one decision or another. It's like chess. One bad move in chess can cost you a good game. So you always have to look seven moves ahead a lot of times.
It's interesting what you said with the cursing. I've done quite a good deal, but at some point I actually found out that what actually had a stronger effect on the situation, that was the same that I expected from the cursing, but actually didn't backfire at all, was instead of my usual cursing methods like a candle, the rusted nail, stuff like that, some bones. Then what I've done, it was purely more or less a mental magic, when I would create an energy ball full of, first energy ball out of ether, that's basic, almost conscious physical, like almost like creating a consciousness. And then through my solar plexus, I pushed intent in it. And the intent was that I want, let's say, this person to be completely dissolved from my life. I don't want to hear about that person. I just want this person to kind of, as problem on my side, disappear. And I did that, and I basically, very simple, very extremely simple ritual, do the energy ball and just send it up. And after I send it up, again, the light, and invoke extremely strong feeling of gratefulness that this thing is going to be resolved, and this problem with this person is just going to be out of my life. After I was doing cursing on that particular person for about half a year with some results, but loads of them backfire. After I've done this, the problem was solved within like 3 weeks, completely. So I was thinking, okay, so that's new way of cursing. So I actually have noticed that even, let's say, a black magic sort of can be actually formed in a white magic form, and I've noticed it seems to have like quite nice results.
Yeah, honestly, when it comes to the term like black magic, white magic, I mean, what about pink magic? What about violet magic? There's just some things which, like, I'm not gonna lie, I was watching the
Rainbow
debate.
magic.
I was watching the debate between you and EA, and I think the only disagreement that I've had amongst you two was, I don't necessarily believe in white magic, gray magic, pink magic, yellow magic.
Neither do
Or even,
I. That's what I was trying to explain the whole time.
yeah, it's like, just because, it's because it's like defining a human. Just because a human does one atrocious act doesn't necessarily make him wholly bad, or just because a human does one great deed, it doesn't mean he's 100% good. It takes a mixture of things. It's kind of weird. Like, I can understand in some nature of magic and curses, like especially with curses, like a time to curse, as an example. It's not like in terms of, oh well, this woman, she broke my heart, so do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to send a curse out to her. She doesn't deserve it. She hurt my pride. And it's like, yeah, she hurt your pride, okay. But I think I only sent out 2 curses during my entire life. The one curse was because when I had my ex, there was this guy, man. This guy, he had my ex broke up with me. He took business from me, and I lost my house, and I had to start fresh. It was like, I
Been
said,
there, man. Been there.
and I'm like, you know what? It's like I generally don't do this because I think it's childish at most times, or you know. But when you lose everything, to me that's a time because it's affecting your livelihood. You know, like during a breakup or during something, you know, that's actually crucial to your life, with your family, to your living, to your job. There's like certain boundaries that shouldn't be crossed. And when those boundaries are crossed, it's time to go in and whip out the curse, in my opinion. You know?
I think in that sense, well, I was using the term black magic and white magic just to somehow kind of use labels, but
Yeah.
in general, I absolutely agree. I think there is just a magic, and it has 50 shades of gray that are naturally blending in each other, and with each spell, you will be somewhere else on that scale, from black to white. You rarely will be purely white. You rarely will be purely black. You always will be somewhere on the scale, and it will be movable, and will be just moving around. And I believe you are supposed to move around on it. You're supposed to experience it all from very black to very, let's say, white. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to experience as the largest extent of duality within my life as I can, and trying to embrace it, therefore, so I can copy the image of divine, which is embracing all the dualities. So I'm trying to stretch myself to both poles as much as I can.
And he was also probably trying to talk in his vernacular for understanding. Like, you know, the thing that I found interesting is, you know, when it comes to black and white magic and all of this, I don't know, maybe it's the rebellious side, but I have this like kind of screw it attitude, you know, most generally, um, you know. But when it comes to like black or white, it's like black or white magic. I think I made a video on this as well. It's like getting a stick. You can do so many things with a stick. You can beat somebody with the stick, or you can hand someone a stick and make them feel like a king. So, or you can use that stick to like kill someone as a wand. It's like it's not a black stick or a white stick or a pink stick or a blue stick or a violet stick or a purple stick. It's a stick.
And that was my problem with the black magic, the way how it's occasionally presented, mostly, let's say, with the Satanists. And that is this idea that I'm going to give you the stick, and you are going to use it only for this particular purpose, and let's call it absolute freedom. I'm like, what?
Oh yeah, I feel the same way about that. You know, I think I say it in my video quite clear. Like, I think it's awesome clickbait. Like, if I was to put black magic in my video, like how to do a true black magic ritual, I think it would probably get, you know, a ton of views. But I stick to my guns
Sex
generally.
magic, black necromantic ritual, if you want to have views.
That's true. But you know, I stick to my integrity. And once again, I guess I stick with the logos, and I'm like, okay, balance, balance. As tempting as that beast is there to use black magic or white magic, I'm just going to stick around in the middle where I'm normally at. You know,
And
it feels pretty good here.
do you have some special method or special ideas, like, let's say, how to balance your own inner, let's say, watery side and fiery side? How you yourself are finding balance between those two?
This is a really good question. Um, and this is quite helpful. Helpful. A little tip, especially if you ever get into a debate or an argument, stick with the facts. Avoid ad hominem, because um, the thing is, like, let's take a situation. Let's take like a thought, like I want to pursue occultism. This is where my passion is. You know, you're driving in your chariot all the way into occultism,
Very fiery.
but you know, very fiery. But at some point, the horses get tired. It's like, I think I drove it way too hard. So the best way you could do it, firstly, is to experiment and push your boundaries. Wear yourself out, suffer burnout. You know, experience life. You know, you have to go through the trials and judgments first. Then once you start to recognize a lot of it, it just comes more naturally. Then you have to ask yourself the question, you know, how's this going to affect me in the long run? How is this affecting me now? And, you know, like, is me hating this person good for me? No. Like, if you talk to me, you'll find I'm probably one of the most stubborn people who you'll ever talk to. Someone in, like, I can forgive someone who accidentally screws me over, but if someone intentionally does it, I'm like, piss off, you know? And it's the same thing. You know, you have to look at the situation, and you have to see what's good for you and what isn't good for you. Is this good for my mental health? Is this good for my body? Is this good for me spiritually?
Mm.
And if it seems a little bit overboard, even if it seems beneficial, even if it seems a little bit overboard, you know, it's easy to get caught in extremism if you don't weigh out those thoughts. So how do you counter that spiritual extremism? Rationality. It's like, should I really trust all of this? Now, let's say we get over skeptical at times as occultists. Okay, well, this sounds good and stuff, but I've gotten results out of this, so I have to dissolve this into something much lesser, into a gray area. So, yeah, it's just like Crowley said, you know, what you have to do is you have to take a thought, balance it out with the opposite thought, and then you reach the solution somewhere in the gray. You know.
That's that's brilliant idea. Like basically, like you have the hermetic idea that you have the water, you have the fire, and the air. The rationality in between is the mediator between those two powers. So rationality, I guess, that's the way how we kind of deal with both emotions and receptivity on one side, and the fire and the passion passion on the other side.
Yeah, it's just like when a news story breaks out, when you see the news and a trial comes out, you know, it comes out. Well, this guy, you know, this guy killed 3 people. Instead of, you know, there's an uproar in society everywhere, you know, and the facts aren't even out yet. It's purported a lot of times, and if there are facts, it's behind closed doors. So instead of getting angry, let's look at data. Let's get all perspectives, because when you approach things from a emotional manner, sometimes it gets overly erratic. And there's a time and a place for the emotions. If you want a revolution, you need those emotions. But the thing is, sometimes you also have to look at the facts to counterbalance that as well. You know.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely ingenious idea. I love it. I love it. Actually makes so much sense. So anyway, that was the last question I kind of have prepared for you for today.
Oh, that's awesome. I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for this beautiful talk. It was very inspiring. I actually already had like 2-3 pages of notes from our last talk, and then during this talk, I actually add actually 2 more pages to my of my notes and things to kind of look at and to think about. And so I found, thank you so much. It was very inspiring to have you here and talk to you.
I'm very glad to be here. It's been a fun time. I like talking about this. I could go on this for days and days and days and days, because I've a stack of journals this big on it. But I find all this stuff very fascinating. So I appreciate your time, and the witching hour is awesome.
Yeah, you like my witching hour. Oh, cool. I have actually something quite funny prepared for this Monday, and that's basically Gary Parson and one of his actors. Gary Parson is a director, and he's directing occult-based movies. He's done one that was called Thelema, and it's very experimental, loads of nudity, loads of experimental, loads of sex, loads of magic, and the actors that are in the movie are usually like actual occultists. So I'm going to be actually in one of his the next movie he's making, called A Conjuration, running around cemetery half naked in a corset and blindfolds. So actually, on this Monday witching hour, if everything goes well, he will be with me in the studio, and we'll be talking about making occult occult movies.
No tantric sex involved in it?
Well, not penetrative, if that's what you're asking about, but there's loads of nudity.
I'm
Okay,
teasing.
does masturbation count as sex?
Only on Fridays, right around 3 p.m. Trust me, I have experience.
Yes. Okay. Okay, you got me there. You got me there. So
It's
yeah,
okay.
like the movies. I told you that artistic. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Artistic. Yeah, it's not sleaze. It's artistic.
That's awesome. It's a good thing you didn't say autistic. Imagine that. Imagine that the ritual is autistic. I could say this. I have autism.
They're still on air. Just FYI.
Yeah, but I had a good time though. It was a lot of fun.
Actually, if somebody is actually listening to this, I can't do that free viewers, and if somebody's actually
I can say that
and
because
listening to this all the way to the end, they deserve a little treat, unexpected treat.
I have Asperger's. I have permission to say such things. Because if that's the case, I do autistic rituals every day.
I'm just like melting and sinking under the table.
I should talk to this director and be like, "Hey, let's make an autistic magical documentary."
Frankly, it's possible he would be up for it. He's like up for many, many, many things. I just think like actually we are going for drinks before the radio show, so I'm kind of hoping we won't be too drunk for the show, but hopefully just a little bit tipsy.
You need to forward him to the part where we talk about an autistic magical documentary.
I will. Like he's up for many, many things. I told you he's artistic, so he's up for many, many things, even outside of a Friday.
Yeah,
But
artistry is a wonderful thing.
his movies are actually great. They're like very raw. So there's very raw occult imagery, and loads of things are going on, and loads of naked people running around in circles and calling Satan and stuff like that.
Gerald Gardner would have a heyday.
Anyway. Yeah, so since you mentioned that you like witching out, this is something that I'm planning for Monday. I think it's going to be interesting because I think occult and magic can inspire art in many different ways, and I think we definitely need more occult movies with real occultists inside and real magic.
I think so too. I think so too. I think the most occult show or series I've ever seen was Supernatural. Like the bust out Latin grimoires. Like I'm not a big fan of Charmed, but in Supernatural they bust out a Latin grimoire, and I'll never forget when Bobby says it's called the Key of Solomon, and then he handed them the grimoire. I'm like, then I saw all the sigils from the John D magic and everything. That's the most occult I've ever seen a movie, other than a few documentaries.
Yeah, his movies are like purely occult and are Crowley based, and he was actually filming at Crowley's cabin before it just went down. And I think he actually went to the Crowley Mediterranean place and was filming that too. So that's the thing they're going to be talking on Monday.
You got me excited.
I'm good in that.
I'm gonna watch that on Friday at 3 p.m.
Okay, I'm no longer in a state, but I can actually hold an interview. So I'm just laughing.
It's okay.
Thank you, Tiger, for your time. It was absolutely delightful.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. It's fun.
Yeah, just for the viewers, that we're actually planning to switch interviews at some point later on. So Tiger will be interviewing me for his channel at some point later on. So if you enjoyed this conversation about Fridays, this might not be the last one.
Fridays are amazing.
So
on Fridays at 3 p.m., I do my little autistic ritual.
Thank you, Tiger.
You're welcome.
Thank you, viewers. It was delightful. And for everybody else, if you would be interested to see more of those interviews, if you go on House of Daft channel, there was a playlist called Interviews with Magi's, and there are the other interviews that I've done before. So you can, if this was interesting, you can have a look at the other ones, and also all the important links to Tiger's website and YouTube channel are in the description section just below my head, basically. So thank you for watching, and see you soon.
Okay.